Welcome back everybody to linuxacademy.com. My name is Terry, and in today's video we continue our exploration of Nginx, the warp-powered web server. So today we're going to be completing the final portion of our LEMP stack installation. Throughout most of the videos so far, we've of course installed Nginx, and obviously we're running in Linux to begin with. In our last video we installed configured PHP and PHP FPM to run over a socket in our services to improve reliability as well as performance. So now we're going to install and configure the M in our LEMP stack, which in the past has typically meant MySQL. Well, we're actually going to be installing MariaDB, and for those of you who don't know what MariaDB is a fork of MySQL, since it is currently owned by Oracle, and there's some consternation and worry in the community as to what they're going to be doing with MySQL in general. So the team, and particularly the lead architect and programmer that wrote MySQL originally and then sold it to Sun, has forked off MySQL and has created a drop-in replacement called MariaDB. And in fact, up through MySQL 5.6, MariaDB has followed code change for code change and is literally a drop-in replacement for MySQL. Only when we get to MariaDB 10 or greater will there be some divergence in performance and feature set. In our case, however, for CentOS 6 and 7, we're going to be using the latest variant in the REMI repo. REMI is not necessary for you to install if you happen to be running CentOS 7, as MariaDB is available in the base repository. But in our case, we're going to be installing the REMI repo. So we've already grabbed the RPMs, the RPM for the repo from the web, and we're just going to do a rpm-uvh, and this matches exactly what we did for EPA when we originally began installing and configuring our Nginx installation. So in our case, we're just installing REMI, and then we're going to do a yum update so that it runs through and pulls in the cached database for our REMI repository. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to install our compatibility files for MySQL 55. And that's what is necessary for us to have a full MariaDB installation. So we're also going to add the MariaDB repo itself. Need some of the compatibility files. So be sure that you copy the following command the way that it's typed here, because we're going to be pulling from the test portion of the REMI repo. So we're going to do a yum -- enable repo equal REMI -test -- disable repo equal REMI, and make sure you spell it right. And we're going to install compat MySQL 55. Now we only enabled the REMI test repo for this particular installation, which is the reason we're doing it at the yum command line. So we do have to do some command line editing of our repos because there's not a repo RPM available for the MariaDB repo, so we're going to have to add it directly to our yum configuration. So let's go to our etc yum.repos.d directory, and we're going to create a file called maria.repo. So let's do a vi on maria.repo, and then again we'll put this in the class notes. We'll paste in the MariaDB base URL for the repository for MariaDB 5.5, which is what we're going to use for our purposes. If by the time this video comes out, 5.6 is out, or you choose to use 10, then just put in the appropriate repo from the yum.mariadb.org site. You can check that URL directly. So in our case, what we're going to do is we're going to do a yum upgrade. So any of our previous MySQL stuff that we might have had on the system, and in our case, we're using our Linux Academy lab server, which doesn't have MySQL installed, will get upgraded when we do this upgrade. So let's do a yum upgrade. So it'll take any of the packages that we have installed that may have dependencies that REMI or MariaDB has available for installation here. and it's going to go ahead and update those items. And then what we'll do is we'll go through and install what we need for MariaDB to be used, and finally we'll configure our MySQL/MariaDB service. Now that that upgrade has been completed, we're going to do a yum install MariaDB-development, MariaDB-client. We want the client command line tools. We actually need to install the server, and we need the Perl DBD module so that we can use it for connectivity to our PHP MyAdmin instance when we install it later. So Perl-DBD-MySQL, and it's okay that it doesn't specifically call out MariaDB. Again, remember the instance that we're using is a drop-in replacement for MariaDB or for MySQL. So it'll go through and make sure that we have everything installed that we need so that we can start and finish our configuration of MySQL. And once we do that, then we'll be able to start the SQL instance and finally download and configure PHP MyAdmin, which will validate that our LEMP stack is complete. So we'll go ahead and let this download and complete, and we'll be right back. Okay, we've got everything installed, and one of the things I want to give you a warning about, especially if you've used MySQL in the past on the same server and now you're changing to MariaDB, although everything is compatible, you may get a large number of compatibility errors if you don't run the yum upgrade the way we've explained here. However, during the transaction test, if you just do a yum remove MySQL and then retry these commands, it doesn't remove anything that's in varlib MySQL, for example, so your databases are fine. Although, certainly, I encourage you to take a backup of your databases before you attempt any system maintenance. You can just remove MySQL and rerun these commands here, and it should install all the dependencies correctly, whether it's on CentOS 6 or CentOS 7. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a service MySQL start. And we'll see what it tells us. So MySQL takes a few minutes to start up, and what we need to do is we're going to secure MySQL. So we're going to set a secure installation for MySQL, because right now it's pretty much open. So we're going to do a MySQL secure installation. And now it'll prompt us to give us a root password so that we can secure our system, because before doing that, root could connect, on at least on a local host perspective, to MySQL, and there wouldn't be a password set for it. We are going to set the root password, and we'll set it to something super secure here. And we're going to remove all of our anonymous users. There's no sense in allowing anonymous users on our local system. It will also allow us to disable root login from remote instances, which we'll do, and we'll remove the test database and access to it. We'll reload the root privileges so that all of our settings are now correct, and now we should just be able to do a MySQL to test that we're up and running -u root -p, and it should ask for the password that we've created, and we are now connected. So if we do a show databases, our database server is now set up and secured. Now, if you'll remember, we've already installed our PHP FPM. So because we have installed PHP FPM before MySQL, just to be sure, particularly on CentOS 7, it sometimes has a problem with the socket communication with MySQL if you don't restart the service after you've installed MariaDB. So all we're going to do is do a service PHP FPM restart, and then we should be ready to test everything by installing and configuring PHP MyAdmin. But for MariaDB, as part of our LEMP stack, that's all there is to it. My name is Terry for Linux Academy.